site, ads, social media, all of these other things that we can do to get people, to come to our sites, because that's really what we're talking about here today. So thank you so much for coming. And yeah, Mark, you're welcome to hang around too if you want to chat with people privately, whatever. But yeah, Heather, if you want to share your screen, hopefully that'll be open for you. And yeah, all good. And we'll be posting all of this later. So on our website, and video recordings and slides and all that good stuff too. So yay.
Sorry, I lost my Zoom window there for a second.
I know it hides, right? It's like, where is it?
Well, when you try to share slides, it covers up everything, and then it's just impossible. Okay, let's see here. So tell me, Renee, are you seeing my slides there?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. All
Perfect.
good.
I want to make sure I'm not sharing my notes screen instead of the slides.
Yeah.
So I'll just dive in here, and then hopefully there will be questions that come in through the chat that I can answer when we're done. But like Renee said, we're going to be talking today about how to take that website and really deal with the concern of getting traffic to it, because that's a really important thing. So as you guys know, the lifeblood of every business is sales. Without sales, there is no business. So as business owners, we should spend a good deal of our time, effort, and our budget focusing on generating more leads and then figuring out how to close them. And typically our websites are a huge part of that equation. Now, sometimes it's easy to feel like once we've built and launched the website that our work is over. But unfortunately, we don't have James Earl Jones or Cornfield magic to send those people to our website so that we can work them through the sales process. It takes a lot of effort. And as business owners, we also feel the constant pressure of limited time and energy and budget. And so that makes it hard to kind of figure out exactly how we're going to spend our time and budget when it comes to not just driving traffic to our website, but everything we're doing in our business. So first, I want to thank you for taking the hour out of your time today, especially on a Saturday, to attend this workshop and to trust me with this precious hour of your time. I think you'll walk away with some good ideas of how you can use your website to better your business, and hopefully some other tips and tricks along the way. So I'm Heather Steele. I'm the founder of Blue Steel Solutions. We're a marketing and communications agency. I also recently started a company called the Problem Solver Method that focuses more on helping business owners who don't necessarily have the budget to hire our agency, but they can still do great things through the help of courses and turnkey services. And I'm going to talk a lot about return on your efforts, return on the energy you spend, maybe even more so than your budget, because I understand this problem of limited time and energy. Like, I totally get it. See, about 10 years ago, I had my second child. And before I ever left the hospital, I decided that there was no way that I was going to go back to my day job. So my brand new baby and I, we started going cold calling together. He was just a few weeks old, and it's kind of hard for people to say no to a mama with a baby. So by the time that my maternity leave was up, I actually had a business that would replace my salary. And so I put in my notice. But I also had a rambunctious 2-year-old at home who managed to get both herself and my newborn son kicked out of their daycare. So just a few weeks into the business, I've got 2 kids at home and a whole lot of work to do with not a whole lot of help. And don't worry, if you have little kids, they do get better. She was wild and crazy, but she's a total saint now. So it does get better. So we had no daycare option because we really didn't want to go through that struggle of getting kicked out again. So like any other sane family would do, my husband decided to leave his job and help with the kids so that I could work on starting this business. So my days were filled with hustling and breastfeeding and trying to figure out how to make every single minute, every single dollar we spent, every single thing that I did count towards growing my business. So about a year into the business, we started to see that my son wasn't quite developing like his peers. He wasn't talking, he wasn't really listening to us. And so we embarked on a year-long journey into therapies and assessments to ultimately learn that he was severely autistic. So we were spending half of our waking hours at appointments and in classrooms just learning how to help him. And my work hours shrank as the business grew. So being really efficient became even more important. And as he's gotten older, things have really just kind of gotten tougher for him. Don't get me wrong, he is a sweet and loving child. He makes us laugh. He feels loved. We feel loved. But he also struggles to communicate and to control himself to an extent that public school isn't a safe place for him. So as he gets older and our insurance pays for fewer and fewer hours of private care, for example, we started at 35 hours a week, now we're down to 15. So my work week has continued to shrink even more. So that efficiency, figuring out the best ways to get things done and making the most out of any time and budget that I'm spending just became more and more important. And then Corona happened and we lost all of our hours. So, as you can imagine, when it comes to figuring out how to grow a business with minimal time and effort spent, I definitely have a lot of firsthand knowledge. And I think some of the things that I'm going to share today will help you not only with figuring out just how to get people to your website efficiently and what to do with them, but in other parts of your business as well. So, like I said, throughout the talk today, I'm going to talk a lot about return on effort or ROE. And what I mean by that is that every single thing you do, when you're spending time on your marketing or anything in your business, we want to see you get returns on that over and over and over. So when it comes to the work of driving traffic to your website and hopefully turning that traffic into leads, we want to make sure that your budget and your efforts are always getting a return. So I'll keep coming back to that because I think it's really important. Most of us don't just have hours and hours every day to throw out there and test things and try things and hope for the best. We really need to see that return happening, or else our businesses are going to suffer. So let's talk about why your website traffic matters to begin with. Unless you have a storefront where you do most of your business, and even now, if you had a storefront and then COVID happened, your website is likely your most valuable sales tool. It houses all the information that your prospects need to know to choose to buy from you. So driving the right traffic to that website is absolutely critical. Now, if we were here all day together, I would go into defining your audience, really getting into the problems you solve for them, how to express that on your website, setting SMART goals in your marketing strategy and your website, traffic and lead generation strategies to make sure that you're using your time most efficiently. But we just don't have time to get deep into those conversations today. So definitely make note of SMART goals, defining your audience, and defining the problem that you solve. At the end, I'm going to give you a link where you can get on our email drip campaign, and I have talks specifically about those things that you can watch. But if you don't get on that or you just don't catch the talks, be sure you research more into those three things because they're really key to everything that you're doing from a tactic standpoint actually working and resonating with people and helping to grow your business. So we'll start with talking about just what are some of the ways that we can drive traffic to the website. And I think one of the first ones that people think about is social media, because most of us are on some form of social media already. So posting there as our business or our organization just makes a whole lot of sense. Now, social media, we think of it as free. But if you've spent time trying to use social to drive traffic to your website, you know that it requires a huge time investment. And you're very unlikely to see results immediately. So keep these things in mind. As you're getting into social media and you're starting to work on sending traffic back to your website, you need to keep in mind that there's not going to be this huge initial payoff. It's a long game. It's going to take some time. But over time, you can cultivate relationships with people that are going to make social media a really strong driver for you. Now, one thing that I did hear mentioned from the last session when I popped in, I'm not sure who that was, the MR, whoever that is, mentioned missing letter. And that's a tool that I love as well. So, when it comes to social media, when we're posting and talking about our business, there's a lot of things that I could tell you. But I think the most important is that you don't need to feel like every single post, every single thing you say, every single thing you put out there needs to be completely unique. I see this with a lot of clients where they struggle to come up with content because we know with social media, even some of the more passive platforms, you need to be posting several times a week, if not several times a day, to really catch people's attention. And so, coming up with enough content to do that can feel extremely overwhelming. So, taking every bit of content you have available and repurposing it so that you have more things to use on social media is super smart. For example, the missing letter tool takes your blog posts and the ones that are evergreen or relevant for a long time. You can schedule those to post over and over again for a year, 2 years, 3 years into the future, as long as it's relevant, so that you continually get more and more out of that message. A single blog post can also be turned into lots of different types of content. Play around with video posts and audio posts and infographics and different ways that you can take information and break it down into other components or into other formats and then repurpose that through your social media. I think that one of the best ways to get long-term return on effort is to set things that you can sort of set and forget, like the missing letter campaign. When we're just thinking about social media as a manual connecting with and posting to, there is no long term residual return on our efforts. As soon as we stop posting, people stop seeing us, they stop thinking about us, we don't have any visibility. And so we're not getting that long term return back on our efforts. But when we can bring the tools into play that take what we've already created and continue to repost it for us, then we can really amplify the opportunities to send people back to our websites. Now, I'll touch on this a little bit later. I'll come back and talk a little bit more about the actual content that you're posting. But one thing I want to say here, and really this goes for every traffic source that we're going to touch on, is that the actual content of your post, what you're putting out there, matters 10 times more than just the fact that you're actually posting. You'll get a little bit of traction just by showing up, but talking about things that people actually care about is going to get you much further. And what people care about is how you can help them solve their problems. So when you are sharing your blog posts or other things on social media and trying to drive people back to your website to get that traffic, keep in mind that they're not going to care as much about your personal stories, how your business is performing, updates in your business. They really want solutions to problems. They want to see that there's a quick, low-hanging fix that they can get in an ebook or in a blog post, or they want to understand how you can help them more deeply with their problems. So keep that content super focused on them, the problem that you can help them solve, and then guide them back to your website so that they can learn more about that. Moving on from social media, and just to clarify the difference in case anyone's not totally familiar with these two concepts, organic social media is what you're posting from your page or your personal profile, and it just is seen by a portion of the people that already follow you, or if people share it, then you can get a little bit more views on it. Especially on Facebook, it's going to be a more whittled down audience of the people that follow you. They're going to use algorithms to try to show that content to who they think is most interested in it. So your social media organic posts definitely matter. They're very important. It's a great way to connect with and engage your audience, but you aren't going to show up to as many people and you're not going to have as much control over where your content shows up as you do with social ads. So for the sake of this slide, we'll kind of focus on Facebook and LinkedIn ads. You can run ads on Twitter and Pinterest and LinkedIn and everywhere else too. But I think most people are the most familiar with Facebook and LinkedIn. So when you're looking at ads on these networks, the first thing I think it's important to keep in mind is that just because you're running ads It's not like printing money. I see a lot of people that have listened to the gurus or gotten some bad information about how ads on social media work. It's not always going to have a high return on your investment. It's not always going to be easy. It does take a lot of work to configure your audience and your message and your targeting and get the right combination to be able to get people to your website and taking some sort of action. So don't ever buy into the idea that just because you're running ads, you're going to make a return on that investment. It's definitely a lot more work in the background. It takes some skill and some research into understanding exactly how to run these ads and the best way to format your messaging and your audience. So while it can bring you immediate results, a well placed ad with great content in front of the right audience can send traffic directly to your website. And depending on what your sales cycle looks like, it might convert to sales immediately, but it's not a guarantee. So keeping in mind that going into social ads with a realistic viewpoint of what you can accomplish, and setting some smart goals. So definitely there's that keyword again, looking back at what is reasonable for you to try to accomplish and how can you set some short time frames to run some ad programs and see what converts and what works well for you is going to be key there. So while it is a great resource and it's a great way to drive traffic, it is something that I suggest that you just take with a big dose of reality. It's not always going to give you immediate results. And again, like what we talked about with regular social media, once you turn it off, it's gone. There's no residual return on that effort. Some people may remember your brand. They may come back to you from an ad that they saw, but for the most part, as soon as you stop paying for it, once you've paid for a click, that's gone. Once you've stopped a campaign that you were paying for, you're not getting any more brand exposure. You're not getting any more mind share. So that's something to keep in mind with the amount of effort that you put into it. You're going to only get back what you can build off of that single click or campaign. It's not going to continue to work for you into the future like some other things will. So another way that we can drive traffic to our websites is with organic search. And this is what I think most of my clients picture. When they build a website, they think, oh, I've got this website. Now people are going to search for things related to what I do, and they're going to see my website, and then they're going to buy from me. In an ideal world, that's how it would work. But we all know that it takes a lot more effort. And thank goodness that Mark did an SEO session before this so that I don't have to break down how SEO works, because it is, as you know, very complicated. So SEO is free again, right? You could do it yourself. You could just invest your time and energy and no budget, but it does require very specific knowledge and significant time. You're not going to see immediate results unless you're in, maybe a niche where there's just very little competition, and even putting anything out there gets you attention right away. For most of us, our immediate results are going to be very minimal. It's a long game. It's going to take time for us to build up and do the right things on our website to be bringing the right people in so that then we can try to convert them or try to get them to do something on our website that we want them to. But over time, this can become a hugely powerful source of traffic. And it does have a very strong residual return on investment or return on our efforts. There's things that we optimized on our blog years ago that are still sending us great quality traffic. So it's definitely something to consider strongly in your mix of how you're sending traffic to your website. But keep in mind, again, it's not just a set it and forget it. It's not a turn a switch. It really does take, as Mark, I'm sure, explained, lots of effort, lots of content generation, optimizing things in the right way. And then to maintain your position, of course, staying on top of all of that and really understanding the competitive landscape. So again, a really strong way to send traffic to your website but lots of other things to consider that you need to be aware of. And then we have paid search. So organic search, I'm sure Mark explained, but that's what shows up naturally in the search results. That's the things that Google, based on their algorithm, has determined are the closest match to a search query. Whereas paid search is where we can go in and we can pay for play. We can pay to have our ads shown with certain queries, and then hopefully, again, drive people back to our website. So again, like social ads, it is not like printing money. And I think paid searches is almost more difficult in a lot of ways than the social media ads are. Google's constantly changing how their reporting looks, and the different criteria that you can use for ads, and what it takes to get your ads to show up where you want them to. And so it definitely is something that requires an expert, or requires someone who has the time to dedicate to understanding how that paid search works. And again, making sure that you're not putting so much budget in that you're not making a return on that. Also, another thing that's interesting about paid search, and to keep in mind with your website. So if you're thinking about running ads and you're trying to decide between social ads and paid search, consider if people are already searching, actively searching for the problem that you solve. So if there's not enough search traffic for whatever your solution is, then you're not going to get a substantial number of people to your website, because paid search depends on someone actually typing in the query that relates to what you do. So if you're offering something that's a little more obscure, or maybe a very new approach to doing a more traditional product or service, then you might want to consider starting with social ads, where you can target more based on your demographics. You can target the type of person, what they're interested in, their age range and geography. You can target them and show them your solution, rather than paid search, where you're really depending on someone actively seeking a solution. So both very great ways to drive traffic to your website, but different use cases. In an ideal world, being able to test both is great. But again, we're small businesses. We usually have to pick one or the other to start with, and then go forward from there. So definitely just keep in mind that if people aren't actively seeking your solution, it's going to be more difficult to really make way with paid search. And again, you can bring in those immediate results, especially if you've done your research and you understand how to use these ads, how to configure them best, then you can definitely bring in immediate results. But you won't get that residual return on effort that you get with search optimization. So again, once we stop paying for it, everything that we've put into it, unless we've already started to get people on our email list or build some brand, all that effort is gone. So again, need to keep in mind that the things that we do, we want to get long-term returns on those efforts. And then the last one that I want to look at is email. So, I think a lot of times people feel like email is played out, it's not as useful anymore. It's really just not true. A good, healthy email list is so valuable, and it's a great way to continue to bring people back to your website. Because what typically happens is, whether it's through SEO or social media or an ad, we get someone's attention and they come to our website. And of course, they're super distracted because we all have a million things going on. And so maybe they're not ready to buy or to engage with us quite yet. But if we have a great mechanism for getting them on our email list, like we can give them a lead generator or something that's going to entice them with a quick win to get on that email list, and then continue to nurture them through drip campaigns or even through just a newsletter that has great content, we can continue to bring them back to our website over and over until they're actually ready to take that next step. So, email, I think, is something that everyone, if you don't have a great way to get people on your email list and you don't have a plan for continuing to nurture those people that are on your email list, that should be item number one. because everything else you do, right, especially those items that don't have a long-term return on your efforts, as soon as you stop paying for it, or as soon as you stop doing it, all that effort is just gone. You have no way to bring those people back or to re-engage with them. But with email, you can do that. You can continue to be in their inbox until they're actually ready to learn more, get a quote, make a purchase, whatever the case may be for your business. So it does require a more long-term strategy. It's not technically free because you're going to pay for some software, but really for the most part, we can consider this one free. And it's the only channel that you actually own, right? Even if you're not, you're not using your own email platform, but you own your list of contacts and you can pick that up and take it anywhere you go. And you own every single thing that you're sending out. You're sending people back to your own website. So you're really bringing people into an environment where you own all the assets and you have the most control to continue to retarget and talk to them over and over and over until they're actually ready to move forward. So email is something that I definitely want to make sure that everyone is at least trying. Might take some time. I am the biggest hypocrite with my own email list. I get really invested in it and then life happens and sometimes I let it slip, but that email list continues to grow and grow. And so even if I do have periods of time where I'm not as dedicated to sending out great content, as soon as I do have that time and I can turn my attention back to it, I'm seeing the return on that pick right back up. So definitely look into email marketing, creating a drip campaign strategy, or just having a long-term newsletter that you can be sending out to people so that you can continue to re-engage until they're ready to purchase from you. So it was a whole lot of me talking. And I'm not done yet, but I'm going to take a moment here to take a drink of water while you think about what are some things that are right for you. And if you don't have a good traffic strategy right now, I suggest picking one of the things we just talked about that you're going to look up SMART goals and figure out how to create some good SMART goals around and just focus on one of those strategy or one of those techniques at a time to try to start driving more traffic to your website. We're going to get into a little bit more here in a minute of how you can see what's actually working and some other information, but just take a minute to think about what is your traffic plan going to be. Okay. So when we're thinking about driving people to our website, we also want to make sure that we're focusing on measuring things that actually matter. So if we're just doing all of this work and we're not measuring anything, that's real bad. That's just a whole lot of wasted effort and we don't know what's actually working for us and what's not. If we're focused on the things that really don't matter, we're kind of doing the same thing, right? It's a huge injustice. We're getting caught up in vanity metrics or like the latest big deal in marketing, then we're doing the exact same thing. We're just wasting our time and effort, and we're not really learning anything so that we can get better and better over time. And like we said, our time and energy are our most valuable assets. They're extremely limited. So everything that we spend our time and energy on needs to bring massive compounding returns back to us. So I'm going to go through a few metrics that you can use to kind of figure out where is your time and budget best spent when it comes to driving traffic back to your website. And I realize you can't probably see these screenshots very well, but they really don't matter. This is just Google Analytics. So when it comes to your website, it's kind of a shame the way Google Analytics has their dashboards laid out because it does sort of draw your eye to things that don't matter as much. It's easy to kind of focus on that number of visits per month or week or whatever time frame you're looking at. And if you don't have Google Analytics installed on your website or you don't know what it is, just look it up. I'm sure this group's probably done a Google Analytics training at some point in the past. If not, there are a million of them out there. So you can easily learn all about Google Analytics. But when you log in there, resist the urge to focus on those vanity metrics that just don't matter. The number of visitors that come to your site, it means nothing. Those could be Russian bots for all we know. We don't even know if they're real people. So the things that I think are way more important to focus on, first of all, conversion. So if you don't have conversion tracking set up in analytics, it's another thing that you can easily Google and figure out. But what that means is that people came to your website and they took a meaningful action that's going to put them further into your sales funnel or your sales process. So that might be making a purchase. That is a great conversion. If you can get people to come to your website, make a purchase, then that's like number one. It might also be filling out a form. It might be subscribing to your newsletter. It might even be just making it to specific pages on your site that you know are deep enough in that shows they're truly interested, and they're taking the right actions on your website that show you that they're a good visit for you. They're someone that could potentially become a customer. So focusing on those conversions, first of all, and seeing where your conversions come from is going to be so much more important than really anything else, right? We want to make sure that our website is actually working to help us grow our business. The next thing that's really important, especially to figuring out what the best ways are to drive traffic to your website, is looking at your acquisition sources. So, where's your traffic coming from? And then partner that with conversions so that you can see where's traffic coming from, which social media networks, which other websites, even down to specific posts or pages, and which of those are actually converting on your website so that you can, again, start to see not only where is traffic coming from, but where is valuable traffic coming from. Because I'll tell you, I've wasted a lot of time putting content out there that just brings in other people that look just like me from a demographic standpoint, who are never going to be my customer. They're just reading what I wrote because it makes it easier for them to serve their own customer base. So adding in that conversion key is so important to making sure that you're not only attracting traffic, but you're attracting the right traffic. And then with your acquisitions, you know where that traffic's coming from. Some other things that are important, but I would say a little less important, I wouldn't focus on them as much, at least not initially with my website, would be like my bounce rate. So if I'm seeing that I'm getting a ton of traffic from Twitter, but it's all bouncing right away, that's probably not very valuable. I need to figure out why. What's going on there that's making people leave immediately instead of sticking around and looking at multiple pages or converting. And then we do have, our visits and page views. It is important, especially when we look for major trends. If we see a huge spike or a huge decrease, then we can look into what's causing those things. But I definitely wouldn't let that be the key, most important thing that you're focusing on. Because at the end of the day, I would rather have 8,000 visitors, or I would rather have, 8 visitors come to my website and actually buy something of high value than have thousands of visitors come to my website and never do anything, never contact me, never ask for a quote, never purchase a thing. So those numbers really don't mean very much if they're not taking action on your website. Then getting into social media, it used to be that everyone was super concerned about likes and follows. And again, it's that numbers game of who cares how many people like or follow you if they're not engaging with you, if they're not clicking to your site, if they're not actually engaging in your site once they get there, if they're not taking some sort of action or engagement with you that shows that they care about what you're saying, then again, those thousands of people, they could be bots. They might not be real people. They really don't matter as much if they're not actually taking action, engaging with your business, or trying to become your customer or your audience in some way. So again, with social media, try to ignore those vanity metrics that really just don't matter very much at all, unless you're an influencer, I guess, then maybe your follows matter. But otherwise, the things that really matter is who's engaging, who's actually following those links back to your website, and then actually engaging with your site once they get there. And then we have our paid ads and SEO. So some metrics to watch for there. Definitely our conversion rate. So coming back to that conversion, especially if you're paying to send traffic to your website, are they taking the actions that you want them to once you get there? Are they purchasing? Are they filling out a form? Are they getting on your list? Those are things that you absolutely have to be watching to determine if these are good sources of traffic for you or not. Same thing with quality score, right? We want to make sure that on our ads, our quality score is staying high. If we're seeing that it's not, then there's probably something wrong with our targeting or with our content, because Google or whoever you're running the ads through is determining that there's a mismatch between what you're trying to get people to do and what they're actually doing. So watching those things will not only help you spend less on your ads, but you'll probably get a lot more return on all of your efforts in your budget, because it's going to mean that you're targeting the right people with the right offer. So we want these things to stay high, right? Our conversion rate, our quality score, those need to stay up. Our cost per action, so that's just what we're paying for people per click, per conversion, whatever actions we're trying to target, especially with our paid ads. We want to make sure that's staying down. We want to pay as little as possible for every action so we can have a higher return on our investment. So again, watching these things and making sure that, sorry, I don't know how to go backwards here. I didn't need to flip forward. There we go. Making sure that we're keeping an eye on these metrics so that we can really understand, is this a good channel for me? Is it worth investing my time and energy in? Or are there better places that I could be focusing on to try to get the right traffic to my website? Okay. And then with email, we've got some metrics we can look at there as well. So obviously we want to make sure our list is growing, adding more people to that list and people that are actually opening, clicking through, engaging with our emails. That's going to be really important for us to know that this is a great way to send traffic back to our website. Some things we want to keep an eye on. Opt-outs aren't necessarily bad, but if we're seeing that people are leaving our email list, by the thousands, then we know we sent something that's probably not a good idea, probably not a good way to send people back to our website. So keeping an eye on that, and definitely your spam reports are some of the metrics to watch there. When it relates to, getting people back to your website, getting that traffic, definitely this click-through rate of, are people not only reading your emails, but are they actually clicking and going back to your website? You could also tie this back into Google Analytics and determine the people that are coming from your email list back to your website. Are they converting? Are they doing something that's going to help move them further into your funnel? And even if some of y'all do print, there are some things we can do. Metrics are a little harder to track, obviously, with print, but we can use like campaign tracking URLs, phone numbers that track. QR codes are like making a huge comeback now with COVID. So those are some things we can do to just kind of make sure that we're keeping our pulse on, man, I have a bank client and the things they hand out in print and mail actually really do send a lot of people to their website, and they get a lot of account openings from it. Same thing with some of the nonprofits I've worked with. Mailers and handouts are huge for them. So we don't want to overlook that as a source of website traffic that could be really valuable and that's probably worth tracking as well. So take a minute and think about, how are you measuring your traffic sources? Do you have Google Analytics on board? Are you using some social media reporting tools? Have you gone in and configured your conversions in analytics? How are you keeping track of how well your different traffic sources are actually performing for you once you get them to your website? So again, the whole point of this, looking at your analytics, looking at reports, is to continue to determine what works so that you can earn that return on effort. And it's a never-ending cycle. As your business develops, your market changes, you're gonna have to continue reviewing those metrics and looking at different potential sources of traffic and figuring out what works best for you to get your highest return, to get the most number of conversions possible, and to make sure that you're sending the right traffic to your website. Now, I'm going to go a little deeper here because I think there's even more value we can get out of this conversation. So, once you kind of have tested some of these different traffic sources and you understand the best ways to drive people to your website, we can take it up a notch and make all of this work even harder for our business. So, I've mentioned a sales funnel several times now. If you don't know what a sales funnel means, it's just the idea that we take a whole bunch of people. In this case, it would be people we're just trying to send to the website, our audience. Those people go in the top of this funnel. And then we work them through with different marketing efforts and activities until we get a few qualified people out the bottom who are actually our customers or our clients. So the sales funnel is really just the idea that people are coming in and then weeding out until we get a few to buy from us at the bottom. Now, most of us, and I am just as guilty of this as anyone else is, most of us focus all of our efforts on that very top part of the funnel. We just want people to know about us. We just want them to get to our website. We're just kind of making the introduction and that's it. We're not doing enough of using our marketing, using our opportunities to touch our potential prospects and customers to move them through that funnel. So thinking about some ways that you can use, those 5 ways that we talked about at the beginning to not just reach potential new audience, new customers, or new website visitors, but to reach people that are in all stages of the sales journey is going to make that return on effort even bigger, right? So by focusing our efforts on the entire funnel, we're going to move more people through as qualified prospects that become customers. And even better, those people will probably buy from you over and over, right? Because you're going to continue marketing to them. And they may even tell their friends, their colleagues, other people about you because you're not just going to introduce yourself and then leave. I think about this as if you have a storefront, right? And you spend all of your effort just trying to get people to come in the door, right? Everything you do, you're just trying to make people know, let's say you sell t-shirts. We're at this address and we sell t-shirts. And then when they come in, you just say, hey, and then you run off to the back. And that's it. You don't try to show them your merchandise. You don't try to engage with them. You don't try to keep them coming back. You just make a quick introduction and run away. That's what most people do when it comes to their digital marketing. So if we break this down and think about some of the different levels of how we can keep engaging with people, we can think about lead generation, which again is what most people are doing. We're just trying to get them to know enough about us to fill out a form or get on our email list, maybe make an initial small purchase, but that's it. We're not focusing enough on how do we actually use our marketing, use the way that we're sending people to our website to move them to close, right? To get them to decide, this is the vendor I'm going to buy from. This is what I'm going to buy. I'm going to put it in my cart, or I'm going to sign a proposal, or whatever the case may be. I'm going to become their customer. That's our move to close stage. And then also in our post-sales stage, this is where there's a huge opportunity to continue to get more sales, because it's much more difficult to bring in a new customer than it is to continue to sell to an existing one. But most of us don't spend enough time thinking about how are we marketing, how are we using those forms of engagement and our website to continue to get people to buy from us over and over, to continue to get people to give us referrals and send their friends and their colleagues to us. So thinking about how you can apply everything we've already talked about, not just to the top level, but all the way through. And ideally keep them coming back over and over. Now, I'm not going to read this out loud to you, but I just put it in so that if you go back and look at the slides, you'll have good definitions of what these things are. So lead generation, move to close, and post sales. And then you can classify your own tactics, right? So what are you doing, your activities to increase effectiveness, to make sure you're touching people at every single step of the way? I'm almost ready for questions here. I've just got a little bit more that we're going to go through. But the idea of getting to the right traffic sources again is measure, adjust, keep working at it, and then repeat over and over. It's a never ending process. And I do just want to come back to the point of what you're doing. These tactics we're talking about are only a piece of the pie. What you do as far as posting and social media and ads, it's just one little piece. What you say about your offering, the problems you solve, those things mean so much more. Because if we're not actually putting a great message in front of people, then we're not going to send them to our website and we're not going to convert them. So I like saying this, and if you've ever been to one of my webinars or seen anything I post on social media, you've probably seen this before, but no one cares about your business. Seriously. Not even your mama. So what do people actually care about? They care about winning, survival, and the problems that threaten their chances of winning. So don't spend the precious few moments that you have with your prospects, with those people you're trying to send back to your website. Don't spend that tiny little space of time that you have with them talking about yourself. Everything that you say, everything you put in an ad, in your meta descriptions, in your posts on social media, it must be framed around how you can help solve your customer's problem. Otherwise, they're going to lose interest and they might even feel threatened and they're gone. So this means your website, your social content, your ads, emails, everything needs to focus on the problems that you solve for your customers, not how awesome you and your business are. Super important. So we have developed a communication framework that's called the problem solver method. It helps you say the right things in your marketing to make people actually want to learn more about your business instead of turning them away. And we have a website checklist that you can download. If you just go to problemsolvermethod.com, I think it's towards the bottom of the page, there's a place where you can opt into our email list. You'll get all the other talks that I've mentioned. You'll also get this website checklist where you can basically just go through and kind of see, are you hitting the most important things for the language on your website and some of the components of your site to help people, once they get there, actually convert and become leads or become your customers. So if you go take a look at that, get on that email list. I promise I'll only send you good content, not a bunch of spam. And then you can take a look at your website and also apply some of those objectives to what you're doing everywhere else to drive people back to that website. So I'll leave this address up, and if there's any questions, I would love to answer them.
Thanks, Heather. Does anybody have any questions? I think maybe it can be a little bit intimidating, just kind of hearing all of the options. If there's any one thing that you recommend, like the first thing that people should do when they leave here, what might that be?
If you're already focusing on trying to send people back to your website, but you're not tracking any kind of conversions, that's the first thing I would do. Figure out what the most important activities are that people can take on your website and set up analytics to track those conversions.
So like filling out that form, filling out that contact form, or signing up for that list.
Exactly. Or purchasing something if you have an e-commerce site. If you're not able to track that, that would be objective number one. If you're not doing any of this yet, right? You're like, I built the site and that's as far as I got.
Right.
Then figure out where you're most comfortable trying one method, just one to start with. Start small, keep it, really tiny and trackable and controllable, and just start with one thing and see how you can make it perform.
And probably those areas where you suggested that you get that continual return on your effort. So like the email, better content, things like that, instead of just diving right into like paid advertising or something.
Yeah, I would say unless you have a really good ads partner that you trust, or if you run ads for other people as part of your business, don't start with ads. They are really effective and great, but you can waste a lot of your budget there if you don't really have a handle on what you're doing and a good plan and good solid expectations.
Mhm. And I would think if you don't have anything on your website to send people back to, or I don't know, I kind of think sometimes things like that, that yes, you can make an ad, but an ad for what? If you don't have a landing page to send people to or a very clear
Right.
action, like you can't just send them back to your homepage. That's not going to do anything.
Yeah, I see that a lot of times, especially with the boosted posts. Like people
Hmm.
do that Facebook boost and it goes to like nothing substantial. So
Hmm.
yeah, that's definitely a quick way to waste some budget.
Yeah.
But that checklist does include some ideas of things that you can have on your website so that people have an action they can take.
Hmm.
Because that is really important. If there's nothing to do on your website, if you're just hoping someone's going to go there
Hmm.
and be impressed with what you have content wise, and then on their
Hmm.
own figure out to pick up the phone and call you or come to your location,
Hmm.
you're asking a lot of that person. We have to make it so simple
Hmm.
and easy to follow that you do this next. You go
Yeah.
from you landed on my website, this is what you have to do next to get my solution.
It's that,
um,
and then what? Like I tell my clients, like, okay, you have your about page, and then what? Like I read your blog post, and then what?
right,
Like, what's the
exactly. And
thing?
yes, and one of the things that we outline in the problem solver method is having an easy 3 or 4 step process that breaks it down to show people this is how you go from problem to solution with me.
Mhm.
And having that very clearly with a very clear call to action, whether it's you request a quote, you book a call, you purchase this thing, telling them exactly, I understand your problem, I have a great solution, this is what life is going to look like on the other side, and this button is the key to
Mhm.
getting that. Makes it so much easier for
Mhm.
people to actually take that action.
It's not that far. Like it's not this huge, long, involved process. Like I'll guide you through it.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
looks like we have two good questions. Barbara wanted to know what's the best way to develop the email list. Like, yeah, I guess where do you advise people start with that?
Yeah, so it's still the kind of method of creating an ebook or a guide or some sort of downloadable piece of content is still super relevant and it works. Even if you don't have a way that you can offer that on your website yet, you can use, most of these like MailChimp and all that. They'll have links where you can offer something that people can download and just type in their email address to even like a MailChimp landing page
Hmm.
and get that item back. Offering something of value is really still, I think, the best way to build an email list. And the key there, and I had to learn this the hard way because I used to give away these guides that were like 50 pages long and taught you everything you could ever want to know. And it scared people away. So giving them a very bite sized, something they can consume in 5 or 10 minutes and put into action right away to see a difference in their life or with the problem that they're facing. That's the best way to get people incentivized to say, okay, I want this thing. I'm going to give them my email address. I'm going to download it. If it's too big or too ambiguous, like just get on my email newsletter. Most people don't want to do that, right? They want something very specific that has a clear description of how it's going to help them in their life immediately.
And that's probably easier for you to create as well, instead of this like long, 20-page
Oh,
PDF
yeah.
of like all the things you ever wanted. Just creating a one-page checklist, might
Yep.
actually be easier for you to do and more helpful for them because it's simple.
Definitely. Definitely. And I think a lot of times we kind of use that burden as an excuse not to do it, right? Like I
Hmm.
could do that, but I don't have the time.
Hmm.
I'm not going to design it, blah, blah, blah. It can be simple. It doesn't
Hmm.
have to be anything fancy. It could be a Word document. It could
Hmm.
be an audio clip that you record. It doesn't have to be anything crazy.
Yeah, even a link to a Google Doc, like a read-only Google Doc, and then
Hmm.
you can change it over time. That way, you don't even have to worry about going back into MailChimp to upload your updated PDF,
Right.
because you changed your lead magnet. Like, yeah,
Yep.
as simple as possible.
Perfect.
Paul wanted to know about drawing people to, he says, a church website, but I think this would be any informational site without an action to take. So a
Hmm.
site that's maybe not so much, a business like buy my
Transactional.
product or something. But yeah, so what kind of drawing people to those types of sites?
Yeah, so I think the way that you draw people is still the same, right? You could still use the same techniques, um, but once they get there, the ask is a little bit different. So with a church specifically, I would ask them to put something on their calendar. That would be my number one call to action. Whatever your upcoming events are, get them to book it on their calendar. That's a solid action that they're going to take and hopefully follow through with. But if it's something where you don't have events coming up or something like that, you could still use the ebook offer, right? You could still have something of value that you can give away to get people on your email list and continue to engage them until an appropriate time for the ask. And that ask doesn't have to be monetary. It could be come join us. It could be attend this event. It could be, get involved in this cause. So it doesn't, I talk from a business standpoint because that's what I care about, but it can definitely be a different kind of ask. And hopefully that answers your question, Paul.
And there was a good suggestion too in the chat, recording and publishing, a virtual service on YouTube. I have a church that does that. They record all their sermons. And even if you go there in person, you can get the stuff later. You can get the download the bulletin and whatever it is later. So it's something else that you want to give to people, I guess.
Yeah, and that's a great way to repurpose content you probably already have. I would even take that a step further if it's people you're trying to draw in that aren't members of your church or your organization, and cut that down to a really bite-sized piece. What was the biggest takeaway from the message that you can cut down and give just a small piece of? Because again, people's time is valuable. They're very distracted, and they're probably not going to sit down and watch, like a full service. But taking out a sound bite that's really impactful and sharing that probably going to get you a lot further than asking people to, here, sign up to watch this 1.5 hour service.
Right.
Some
Right.
people probably aren't going to want to do that.
Yeah, something to meditate on for the week. Yeah, small, what the scripture is, or reading. Yeah, just something small. That's a good point, like a good tidbit of it.
Yeah. Perfect. Any other question? I like this conversation here about the technical side of sharing Google Docs and all of that.
Right,
That's
right.
important to keep in mind. And I will say, anything you're giving away like that, don't get precious about it. People are gonna steal it. The better it is,
especially
the
if it's
quicker
good.
It's gonna get stolen. Yeah. Right. So as much as you want to try to protect your personal integrity and property, if it's good, people are going to steal it. But people that steal are lazy, and you're going to outpace them. So,
right.
I've found our content that's been stolen and reused, and it's kind of like, okay, good luck with that. But I don't know. I try not to get too upset about it.
People will take that like whole site's worth of stuff, but they don't even change the links. So sometimes it even just goes back to you, and you're like, what the?
Yeah, it is funny when they don't do that. I don't quite understand the purpose of it, but yeah, it is something that even though you've got it copyrighted and it's your work, people are going to steal it.
Yeah. So thank you so much, Heather. So if people have questions, if they have additional questions, where can they just find you here at the Problem Solver Method, or I guess on Twitter maybe as well?
Yeah, so Twitter, here, I'll drop my, the best way to reach me is Heather Steele 03 on Twitter. I'm most active on LinkedIn. I'm on there as Heather Baker Steele. But yeah, either one of those places or through our bluesteelsolutions.com or problemsolvermethod.com are also great ways to reach me.
Awesome. And Heather does send really good emails. So if you are thinking about starting an email list, I know she said she doesn't always email, but when she does email, they're good emails. So it's like the kinds of things that make you want to open them and forward them to a friend and that kind of stuff. So sometimes it's good when you're looking into doing something, to sign up for that. So if you're looking into starting an email list and you want to create a lead magnet, sign up for some lead magnets, not about lead magnets, but just something that you're interested in, maybe a craft or a hobby or a something, just to get the idea of how the sign up process works and what you get back in return. And then you can evaluate it for yourself. Like, was this too difficult to sign up for? Or what was something that went well? Or did you like what you got back? so those will give you ideas that, maybe help you spark, something in your, for you going forward.
Yeah, that's a really great idea. I think looking for places where you can kind of be inspired by and get
Mhm.
ideas from. Just try not to get so overwhelmed that you completely change your strategy.
Yes, exactly.
I've been
Yes.
guilty of
Yeah.
that too.
Yes, yeah. Mark said this in the last presentation. These things are long games, so starting, content strategy, SEO work, email list, it all takes time. But I like to tell people that it's actually good when only your mom is on your email list, because you can make all those mistakes and she'll still love you. But when you have an email list of 5,000 people and you make a mistake, it's a little bit more like, ugh. So it's it's good when nobody's on your list at the beginning. It allows you to work through all that stuff
That's a great point.
until you get famous. So awesome. Well, so everybody, I think I put this before, but if in case you weren't here, if you go to wppittsburgh.com, I will post the link to I'll post a link to Heather's slides, and then it'll take me probably a couple days to parse this video. This is one big video. Parse the video out, get the video up on YouTube. You can subscribe to our YouTube channel. We probably won't have any meetups in December, but check for us back again in January and February. If you're interested in talking, or if you're interested in any specific thing, we can try to find a speaker about that thing, because we all just like to learn more about WordPress, and that's why we're here on Saturday mornings, just talking about WordPress and talking about websites and things like that. So happy to help any way we can. So okay, awesome. Okay, everybody, well, thank you so much, and we will see you again soon.
Bye, y'all. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much.
Renee, you did well. Thank
Yeah.
you very much for putting this together.
Thank you so much. I'm glad you were able to come. And so crazy that we're like so close. And somebody else mentioned Tampa too. I was like, what are we all doing here?
Don't know where MR
Yeah.
was or who she is or what she
Yeah.
was doing, but
Yeah. But that's very cool. So
I did not
awesome.
recognize her voice.
Oh, Naples. She said Naples. So very cool. Nice. Yeah. So I'm gonna get to work on parsing this video up, and I'll get that posted. And
As I said, I appreciate you putting this
cool.
together. I
Yeah.
especially like Mark's presentation about SEO content. It was
That
very
SEO is
articulate and very well done. And yes,
that's a crazy beast. You can really get into that. As soon as I hear keywords, sometimes my eyes gloss over. I'm like, oh, I don't know what's happening, but it's good stuff. Yeah. And good that, we hear it over, and attend the meetups, and, we learn more, and that's all good.
Absolutely. But again, thank you for your efforts for putting this together, and then for maintaining it and adminning it and all of that. So
yeah, thank you.
well
I'm glad
done.
you're able to come. Thank you very much. Yeah. And stay in touch and join us again soon.
Thank you.
Okay. Take care, everybody.